Syira? Manira?
Ya,
Ada kat YouTube live dah ada orang belum?
ada 20 watching.
20 watching. Okay. Dia belum on kan?
Belum.
Belum keluar muka aku kan? Takut lah. Bos hadir dah hari ni?
Tunggu. Esok ada. Minggu ada.
Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh dan salam sejahtera dan salam UiTM. Dengar tak Ira?
Dia?
Dengar tak?
Ya.
Saya cuba ya. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Salam sejahtera dan salam UiTM di hatiku. Distinguished Professor, Associate Professor, Dr.
Saya cuba share dulu. Saya cuba.
Boleh Dato.
Sekejap. Datuk boleh try share slide.
Okey tak?
Saya tak nampak apa lagi, Dato'.
Okey, jap. Strategies. Okey tak?
Tak nampak, Dato'.
Tak nampak juga.
Ah.
Network connection issues. Share. Okey.
Nak kami bantu tunjukkan slide tu, Dato'?
Okey, saya cuba sekali lagi
Okey, Dato'.
Nampak tak?
Tak nampak, Dato'.
Oh, why? Tak apalah, you all tolong. Sorry lah.
Syira,
Ya,
minta tolong sharekan Dato' punya skrin, Syira. Thank you, Syira. Okey, boleh kita mula tak, Dato'?
Yes, boleh. InsyaAllah. No problem.
Okay. Alright. Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi taala wabarakatuh. Salam sejahtera dan salam UiTM di hatiku. Distinguished Professor, Associate Professor, Doctors, ladies and gentlemen. A very warm welcome to all of you. Thank you for taking this time to join us today for this session. Your presence here reflect your strong commitment and to advancing knowledge and research, especially in the field of health and wellness. Before I start this webinar session, allow me to introduce to you our distinguished speaker yang berusaha, yang berbahagia, Profesor Dato Dr. Bakar Abdul Majeed. Yang berbahagia Profesor Dato Dr. Bakar Abdul Majeed is a registered pharmacist with the Board of Pharmacy Malaysia. He served the board as its executive council member in 1996 to 1999 and 2016 to 2022. Dato Professor has a Bachelor of Pharmacy degree from Al-Zaghazi University, Egypt in 1983, PhD in Neurophysiology from Sheffield University, United Kingdom, and Master in Business Administration from University Science Malaysia. In 1992 to 1993, Dato Professor was a visiting scientist to a laboratory for neural information processing Brain Research Institute, Riken, Japan. In 2002, he became Dean of Faculty of Pharmacy, University Technology Mara. Between 2009 till 2014, he was Assistant Vice Chancellor for Research and then Assistant Vice Chancellor for Medical and Dental campuses. Yang berbahagia, Professor Dato became Rector of UiTM Selangor in 2017. Dato Professor was made the Director, Research Management Center, UiTM from 2021 to 2022. In August 2022, he returned as Dean of the Faculty of Pharmacy, UiTM. Dato Professor has also been a member of Board of Governors IMU University, Kuala Lumpur since 2019. At the national level, yang berbahagia Professor Dato Dr. Abu Bakar is Head Clinical and Health Cluster Research Grant Scheme and member Task Force for High Impact Center of Excellence, HICOE, of the Ministry of Higher Education, Malaysia. Dato Professor is also a founding member of National Bioethics Council under Ministry of Science, Technology and Innovation, Malaysia, becoming its chairman between 2016 to 2018. As an avid writer of science and technology, yang berbahagia Professor Dato Dr. Abu Bakar has written and edited over 20 academic books, more than 1,000 of research articles in respectable journals. Dato Professor research interests are Alzheimer's disease, drug delivery to the brain, and bioethics. Yang berbahagia Professor Dato Dr. Abu Bakar is a winner of the 2023 Helen Clark Journal of Pharmaceutical Policy and Practice, JOPPP, Award for Pharmaceutical Policy and Practice Research based on the scientific merit of his work, as well as the impact of his work on patient, decision makers, and governments. Ladies and gentlemen, as you can see from his illustrious career and numerous contributions, yang berbahagia Professor Dato Dr. Abu Bakar exemplify excellence in the field of pharmacy, research, and bioethics. His leadership and dedication have shaped the health and wellness sector on both national and international platforms. Without further ado, I present to you yang berbahagia Professor Dato Dr. Abu Bakar Abdul Majeed to deliver his speech entitled Winning Strategies to FRGS in Health and Wellness. You may write the questions. If you have any question, please don't hesitate to write the questions in the YouTube link, and we will answer as soon as possible, or you can ask at the end of the session. With that, thank you very much. Dipersilakan, Dato.
Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Yang berusaha Associate Professor Dr. Akehsan, to all members of the organizing committee for this talk from ReNeU Health and Wellness Nexus. Firstly, thank you so much for coming to this webinar. Hopefully we can share some experience regarding how to write a winning proposal for FRGS 2025. Just a small correction. I heard Dr. Akehsan mentioned that I have written over 1,000 articles. Actually, it should be 100, and 1,000 is too many. All right. We'll start by looking at some of the issues or points that you have to take into consideration very seriously in writing your proposal for FRGS 2025. Okay, Shaira is going to help me with the slides. Next slide, please. Thank you. First things first, you have to visit this portal for sure. When you visit this portal, you see this next slide. You know that the FRGS 2025 is now on, and at our level, UiTM, deadline is 16th of January, not too long to go. This is because RMC would have to do some work within the institution before your proposal, if supported, is to be forwarded to KPT. So we have some time actually, even though it's only about 10 days, not more than 10 days, about 1 week to go. Yeah? Next slide, please. When you go to the website, please scroll and look for these guidelines. You can download these guidelines. So guidelines, they always change year to year, although there is probably a little bit of difference from last year's guidelines, but there are things that you should take into consideration because your proposal will be based on guideline for 2025. Yeah. Next slide, please. As per described in the guidelines for 2025, there are several amendments, several changes. Please look through all the items as per mentioned in the amendment or pindaan and look through them very carefully and see what are the differences between this year's guidelines versus last year's guidelines. Eh? So they're all itemized, about 12 places where things have changed slightly, not so much, yeah? Especially under budget from item number 7 to 12. Next slide, please. Together with the guidelines, you should also refer to these two documents. One is document Takbir Urus Dana Penyelidikan or governance of research grants under KPT. And secondly, there's a document called Malaysian Code of Responsible Conduct in Research by National Science Council. So when you write your proposal, you must also refer to these documents that you are using some of the items or suggestions, recommendations, procedures that are mentioned or stated in these two guidelines to show that you have already referred to these two guidelines. Next slide, please. Just a few things that I want to highlight of items in the guidelines. For example, definition, which you all should read and carefully absorb the meaning or the expectation. So definition is that fundamental research is basic research that can produce new Malaysian molded theories. So theories, number 1, concepts, number 2, and ideas, number 3, for the development of knowledge, untuk perkembangan ilmu. By the way, I must say that although this is technically meant for health and wellness, I've also invited participants from other nexus of the cluster to attend. I believe people from Kedah, some of them are here to probably they'll be submitting under the health social sciences cluster or domain. Yeah? All right, so that's definition. For purpose, this research or FRGS aims to accelerate the generation of new Malaysian model, theories, concepts, and ideas that are the catalysts for new discoveries that break the boundaries of knowledge and innovative creation. So basically, you want to promote your proposal as being able to produce new ideas, new concepts, and probably, hopefully, pushing the boundaries of knowledge, yeah? Meaning at the very cutting edge. As for assessment criteria, just 2 things you must look out for very carefully. Yeah? Read carefully the assessment criteria in the guidelines. Yeah? So the research proposal applied for must meet the following criteria. Number 1 is that they should be able to produce new idea, theory, concept, method, model, or process. And that's number 1. Number 2, either or any one of these 3, meaning the new ideas or concept can improve existing policies, methodologies, solution, or it can improve humanitarian and societal issues for the purpose of increasing the value of life locally and worldwide, or it can have potential contribution to the national strategic agenda. For example, in our area of health sciences, something called medicine security, the importance of having locally produced medicines, especially in time of crisis, for example, during the COVID pandemic situation, we were short of even Panadol, paracetamol, meaning that we are not able to sustain production of this when we cannot import from other countries. So paracetamol, active ingredients are not available because countries will not exporting to Malaysia, and the whole of the country was facing shortage of even paracetamol. So if you are going to be involved in medicine or kind of coming up with active pharmaceutical ingredients, for example, or API, then your project is considered to be able to contribute to national strategic agenda. Also think about maybe food security, even boundary security, border security, and so on. Meaning, again, the criteria is number one, new concept, theories, ideas, and one of the three that we discussed. All right. I'm just going to mention to you some of the approaches by our assessors when looking at your proposals. This is the review process happening at KPT level. I believe also the same thing applies when we're looking at the proposal at UiTM level. Yeah. So, in short, what we're looking for is what we refer to as a winnable proposal. The features should have, for example, this must be a document or your migrants form that you have fill up, which is neat, well organized, and easy to read. And the proposal must also be responsive to the program announcement with specific references showing how the proposed project will achieve program goals and objectives. So as I mentioned, call for proposal will require you to fulfill certain requirements of the grant, and these are all spelled out in the guidelines. That's why reading the guidelines, at least you have to read from part 1 to part 3, meaning the preparation side, so that your proposals actually would meet the requirement of the funding agency. So that is responding to the program announcement. You cannot just write on anything which is not related, because that will not meet the purpose or the program goals and objectives of FRGS. And it's good if you can provide fresh insight into the problem that you intend to solve. Probably these problems like flooding, for example, has been on for many years, and many people have submitted ideas or ways to, to overcome flooding. But if you have a fresh idea, fresh method, or fresh way to improve how to manage flooding or how to manage diseases that's going to appear after, flood situation, then this fresh idea, there is really fire in you. The commitment, the enthusiasm are there. Yeah. And then we also need to know that you, SPI, and also your co-researchers are people who know the area that you intend to pursue. So your literature review, your research background will tell us how much you know. Also, it is important for you to update your profile. Co-researchers should also do that, so can look through and feel that you are the right person to be awarded the grant to conduct the research that you're proposing. And preliminary data normally would help very much. So at the end of your research background, it's good for you to include any preliminary data that you have generated. And this data, best if they are not yet published, unpublished data, but you should present the data in a bit convincing manner. I believe normally the best way is to put them into infographic, into graphs, into pie chart, into something that that is visible, easy for assessors to look at, and also to assess and finally be convinced about your prelim data. With prelim data, assessors would feel a little bit less risky in giving you the money, because you already have the starting point. Whatever fund given to you with that starting point, you can move faster, further, so the money will be mostly well spent. So assessors would feel less risk to give you the money instead of giving it to others who have not done anything yet on that particular subject. And your budget must be appropriate. So we'll go through this towards the end of this talk. Yeah. Next slide, please. So I'm going to share a bit of what assessors say when they, and of course we have time to sit down during lunch, during tea or coffee break. And this is the time when assessors sometimes they make comments regarding proposals that they were going through. And I pick up some of these comments, and these are some of the things that are normally highlighted by assessors while they are doing the assessment of proposals. Yeah? Most common comment would be that the abstract is the selling point of the proposal. So that means you must try to write your abstract in the most attractive manner, so that by reading the abstract, the assessors would feel very much, interested to go further into your proposal. So abstract is the best selling point that you can create or you can craft in your proposal. And there are comments to say that the abstract actually give the assessors the big picture. And if they like it, then they'll go into the details. But because they have so many, sometimes if they don't like the abstract, then they put your proposal aside. Maybe they come back to the proposal later. Sometimes they have maybe 10, maybe 20 proposals to look at. So of course, the ones with the best abstract, the most convincing abstract, will be the ones that they initially choose. We sometimes, as you know, the success rate for FRGS currently will be about maybe 30 to 40%, meaning that for every 10 proposals, we would need to not support or reject maybe about 6 or even 7 from 10. So you can imagine that the number that we have to reject is higher than the number that we can support or recommend. So this is the thing. How do you make yours very attractive, so much so the assessor will not find it, reading it difficult or anything, but just have decided to support your proposal. And you want them to be saying that they feel that reading the article, they feel great, and they feel that the study has to be done, and they also feel like they are, they have, like fire burning in the belly, and they really would say that they wish they had thought about that project. And of course, we know that sometimes as we read the proposals, we feel that some proposals actually teach us. In fact, I think all of them would teach us something new, the assessors. Yeah. Next slide, please. Some of the comments would be like, sometimes the writing is vague, writing is unfocused, and because of that, the assessors, would need too much time for them to understand what the applicant is trying to say. And another possible error is that the writing is too rigid, too, structured like an academic writing for the purpose of publishing in a journal, like a journal paper. You have to balance, because sometimes the assessors, they are not really 100% in your area. They may be about, 60, 70% in your area. So if you want them to understand what you're trying to say, there has to be a bit of coming down a bit on the level, to the level that you can make people who are less into your subject matter understand what you're trying to explain. So there has to be a bit of empathy towards your assessors or your readers, in the sense that you try to write something that can make them understand your intention or your purpose. Next slide, please. And assessors, they are most, they feel most distracted when they have to read through long, tedious write-up, and then with unnecessary verbosity, they will say, trying to push too much into the too much materials into the writing, and as though they are desperate in trying to say that the more I put in, the better my chances of winning, which may not be true at all, because reviewers tend to want to read less and less, as long as they get the message very quickly, and then that's the best thing for them to be in the best position for them to be in. Next slide, please. So other common mistakes are also found. the proposal actually does not respond to the program announcement, and this is a common mistake. If you read the guidelines proper, then you know the purpose of the fund. Now you try to cater your write-up towards meeting the target or the objectives of the fund. Normally they miss, and the most common mistake is you write a proposal which is not fundamental, but rather applied in nature or even exploratory in nature. And secondly, the writer does not understand the state of the art, meaning your literature review and background is not sufficient, is not up to date, does not take into consideration overall happening in that particular area. So you do not have proper control of the or proper understanding of the state of the art of that particular subject that you are proposing. The project may also be too ambitious, too global in scope. Remember, the ceiling fund for Frgs is only 250,000 ringgit, and this is considered to be quite small. So do not try to propose something which is too big, too global. That's why a problem statement try to make it very specific in the sense that you could control the scope and control even the location where you conduct the research. But I'm not saying that location must be very limited to one small kampong, one small hospital, one small community, but at least in the Malaysian context, you will be able to control multi-center. For example, we discussed this morning doing research on teaching hospitals, for example. So you want your subject to include, members of all teaching hospitals, not only one teaching hospital. So the project is not too ambitious or too global, but it should be able to control the location, the scope, and the size of your subject, the size of the area, and so on. And the research plan sometimes is vague, very hard for the PI to grasp the purpose of the proposal. It's just like the writer is saying that just trust me, give me the money, which is not possible. Yeah. And when you do not update your profile, then we do not have any way to ascertain your competency because the profile is sometimes blank, left blank. So we are not sure about your competency, and this will lead to rejection of your proposal. Next slide, please. When asked, when talking to some of the assessors and asked about qualities that particularly annoy or irritate them, and the frequent complaint was sloppiness and lack of proofreading. Although this was still happening over the years, but this should be, I think, totally eliminated in your proposal, because there are many ways now that you can remove sloppiness, especially in terms of proofreading. There are software that are available for you to totally eliminate spelling errors, grammar errors, and so on. And sometimes it is quite clear that what you have written or what you have prepared is a cut and paste job, because I think assessors they can actually evaluate, or they can differentiate between an original write-up and a write-up which has been prepared by cut and paste method. Yeah? So for the assessor, they would feel that if the PI cannot take the time to do it right, so why should the assessor bother to look through the proposal very seriously? So the only way is to reject the proposal. Next slide. So of course, we are all bright people. Academicians are smart people, but if when asked to the assessors why bright people could commit such basic errors, then most likely because we do not plan, we do not have enough time to prepare a good proposal. But it's all about not doing this seriously, sitting down properly, thinking about it, and then writing meticulously the proposal. Yeah? So do not keep things to the last minute. Do not procrastinate, please. We still have a few more days. Of course, this weekend, I think for those who are applying, this weekend will be quite, as far as this weekend is concerned, it's going to be a working weekend. Yeah? But do not despair. Once you get the grant, after having putting the effort, I think you will feel satisfied, I'm sure. Next slide, please. And assessors also have made, statement like they know that the proposal was not written by the PI because when they assess, they feel like it is not a product of someone who is close to the project, maybe written by a postdoc, maybe written by a postgrad student. And because of that, the proposal fails to communicate with the assessor of the intention of the proposer or the applicant. Especially, there will be missing items like why the project was proposed or what are the circumstances behind the project and how it will be delivered. If it is not written by the person himself, by the PI himself, it's going to be quite disjointed, the proposal from between the writer and also between the PI. Next slide, please. And other skill that need to be improved, as mentioned by several assessors, is that you should have or put up a simpler, livelier writing style. The idea is to capture the intention or the interest of the reviewers. And then you lay down your key points very early and very clearly. You organize your proposal in a very nice manner. You can have sections and subsections, and best to include more and more visual illustrations, because this will shorten the time for assessors to understand what you're trying to propose. Visual illustrations help us a lot, charts, photos, infographics, and so on. Next slide. Also, other basic lessons mentioned by assessors is that study the program call. Understand the guidelines properly. Read, if possible, the guidelines from page 1 right up to the end. See what the grant is all about, and make sure your proposal is easy to read. Start much earlier than you think you have to, because we have been giving this FRGS and reminder earlier, and some of you have been doing this year over year, year after year. So I think we should be ready to write a good proposal this year. We know it's coming, and I'm sure you have done your draft. This is to make things better. Make sure you know what has already been done in your area. Do proper literature review up to 2025, January 2025. Look at papers that have been published. Google, do your patent search and so on. Write in an accessible way that can be understood by diverse group. Again, I mentioned some assessors are not 100% in your area. They may be 70, 80% in your area. So maybe you have to tone down a bit and try to write in a manner that people with, just slightly above average knowledge of your subject matter can understand. And do not fail to resubmit, because assessment will be done at our level, UiTM. So whatever assessors say, internet assessors say, please try to respond to them. And if you do not agree, then tell them why. We should be doing this, submitting, resubmitting as many times as possible. I know time is always short. Maybe we can do it only once, twice, 3 times, or 4 times. But I always mention I've seen one being done 8 times from a top research university in the country. And finally, that proposal actually was successful. All right. So these are the things to mention. Next slide, please. Now we go on to filling up the FRGS form in MyGrants. Just the basic. For those who have done this before, I'm sure this is just a revision for you. Otherwise, for newcomers, please take note of some of the things that I would like to highlight. May not be full, but these are the important things. Okay, next slide, please. Thank you. First, always update your profiles. Update your co-researchers' profile. Tell them to do that without fail. at least we must have your latest papers there, your latest research projects, and also if you have supervision you want to put in, you can. All right, make sure they are updated. Next, you go to the title. The title can have a working title first, and then you can come back and improve the title from time to time. Sometimes titles are also being improved by your internal assessors. So, you know, you should appreciate, I think, the feedback and also the assist from your internal assessors. I've seen quite a number of projects. The initial title was quite long, but after having gone through the institutional assessment evaluation, the title has been made more concise, more clear, and that has led to successful applications. Yeah? All right, remember, title must be specific in nature and reflecting the fundamental issues to be resolved. So some of the wordings in title are important for you to choose. Yeah? And they should also be brief and reflects the content of the proposal. These are the things that assessors would have to look out for when they're doing the assessment. This is something like the rubric of our assessment. This may change a bit from time to time, but as we are looking to the proposal, we want to find out these things are reflected in the proposal. So for title, do not have too long title, 3, 4 lines. The title will not be attractive. Maybe about, I would say, 10 to 15 words title would be just nice. Yeah. Okay. Just examples of titles. Next slide, please. Last year, winning proposals from UiTM, for example, under clinical and health sciences. You see those titles. I've chosen this 5, but it so happened this is not done in purpose. But you see, 4 titles actually start with the word elucidating, meaning going deep into the subject matter. And this is not coming from just one assessor. These titles are from various assessors, but it seems that many of them would have the same understanding or perception of the word elucidating as indicating fundamental. But of course, we're not going to bet on the title or on the one word only. Yeah, but it so happens that it is this way. So these are some of the examples you can look through. Next slide, please. For pure and applied, some of us may want to submit into pure and applied. That's okay. You do not necessarily need to submit only in clinical health sciences. Pure and applied, I think, may also be relevant to some of us. So these are the titles. Yeah, elicitation, molecular structure. These words imply fundamental research. Yeah, explicating, for example. Next slide, please. So for environment and heritage, sometimes you try under sciences, you are not successful. And your project happens to be related to nature, to the environment. For example, you're doing work on natural products. Yeah? You're doing work on plants or climate or something. Rather than health, you can also come into this domain of environment heritage. For example, look at bullet number 2, neuroprotective mechanism of standardized fermented Moringa oleifera leaf and Ganoderma lucidum. So these are 2 natural products, and they are to be tested in, trying to improve or alleviate dementia in rats. And they have submitted under heritage, and they are successful. This may well be submitted to the health and clinical domain, but they submitted to heritage and they are successful. Bullet number 3 also somewhat related to, health or environment, quality of life, quality of environment. Next slide, please. Social sciences. Look at some of the titles that were successful in social sciences. The word developing seems to be okay in social sciences, but in sciences, you seldom find winning proposals that have the word developing, because to the scientists, the the meaning of developing is trying to prepare something for a purpose for usage. And that seems to be going towards applied research. But look at bullet number 4, development of a healthcare and safety framework to mitigate child mortality in childcare centers. This may again well be in domain of clinical and health sciences, but they have, they have opted to go under social sciences, and they are successful. Yeah, so that element of strategizing is also important. Which domain you would like to submit your proposal into? Next slide, please. For arts and applied arts, again, for people in Kedah, if they are with us, or those in social sciences, you can also try. For example, look at model terapi jiwa al-Dihlawi bagi mengatasi tekanan akademik mahasiswa Madani. So this is, again, can also be under health and clinical cluster. Next slide, please. Under information and communication technology, some of us also may want to submit under this if you have a project which is related to digital health, for example, prediction models and so on, even quality of life prediction models. You may want to opt for ICT, but I can tell you also ICT is quite tough. They do not receive too many proposals, basically, but the selection can be quite also rigid, like health and clinical domain. Next slide, please. So overall, if you want to check whether your title is new or otherwise has been done previously, go back to this website and then click, next slide, please. Click under Carian, My Grants. Then you click project. Next slide, please. And then you can put a keyword to search. For this one, I put up nursing, and you get, if you search, then you get a list of projects having nursing as one of the words in the title that have been approved under FRGS. And if you click the title, you can actually get into the abstracts of these proposals. To give you an idea of what the winning proposals are, how they look like, how they have been written. Next slide, please. After the title, we look at the abstract. As assessors, this is the second item or criterion that we look at. And for abstract or the executive summary, we are looking at 5 items. There must be a problem statement. There must be objectives, methodology, the expected outcome or output of the project, of the research, and the significance of the output. So if there are 5 items, then we consider that the abstract has met the requirement for FRGS, and assessors normally would then continue to read the rest of the proposal. So one example, this is maybe quite small. Next slide, please. Very small, but if you could read this abstract and a sample of abstract from a successful application, you will find all the 5 items in the abstract. And just to advise you, it's always good to have the problem statement appear as early as possible in the abstract. Do not wait for too long. Do not have too many long or too long introduction, too many sentences for introduction. And normally, I would suggest you don't have to put lots of data into your introduction, like demographic data or epidemiological data. Not here, don't worry. What you should put here, just maybe one line of intro, and straight away then go into the problem statement. What is the problem that you're trying to overcome or you're trying to solve in doing this project? And then you come up with objectives, and then followed by methodology. Sometimes you can have one methodology for one objective, or you can have one methodology to cover 2 or 3 objectives that you're proposing. And then methodology comes with quite short but understandable and logical. These are the right method for you to use to try achieve the objectives that you're proposing. And then you will highlight the expected outcome from this, and then how they relate or the significance of this outcome, normally relating to some of the government's policies, some of the ideas, some of the, for example, even WHO's, guidelines or policies or recommendations. You can relate to some of these documents. Yeah? So those are the 5 items. Remember: problem statement, objectives, methodology, expected outcome, and significance of the outcome. If you have those five items, your abstract will be okay, and assessors will move forward to read the rest of the document. Next slide, please. Then we look at your research background, and this is where you can elaborate the title. You can enhance your problem statement, research question, your hypothesis, your framework, whatever else that you can do. This is where you can write quite lengthy, but again, not too lengthy, maybe 1.5 pages. Yeah, and make sure that you'll be citing most recent, not older than 5 years old references. Yeah, this is still valid. This has been mentioned hundreds, if not thousands of times before. Make sure your references are current, and as current as, like I said, January 2025. You can have a few, 1 or 2, which are substantial papers, which always would need to be made references. That is fine, but majority of your references should be recent. And indicate where your project is in line with government policy, with national agenda, even global aspiration, quality of life, climate change, and so on, that would impact on health, yeah, or social well-being of the community. So we look at this research background, and we try to make sure that they are all present in your research background literature review. Next slide, please. So for background, you need to look through the Malaysian research landscape. Yeah, what's going to happen to Malaysia in the coming years, so that you can fit into your project, can fit into one of the expectation or planning or the targets of the country. Next slide, please. So some documents that you can refer to, and you can mention in your proposal that you have referred to these documents to show that you are in line, that you are, in tune, and you are aware of what's happening in the country now and probably the planning for the future. For example, you can refer to the 13th Malaysia Plan, although it is still in the stage of formulation draft, but you can already refer and mention, look through and see where the 13th Malaysia Plan or which part is in line with what you're proposing. For us, health mostly under demographic and quality of life, so we can refer to this. Or for social scientists, maybe shift in economic blocks, or even environmental and climate crisis. Or even social can also come into demographic and quality of life shifts. Yeah, you can find these documents available, I think, on the internet. Next slide, please. And for further, I've read through the draft, and it seems that these are areas that will be made into focus areas under 13th Malaysia Plan coming up next year. So I'm sure under the 16 areas, priority areas, you can fit in your proposal in any one, at least one of them. Yeah. So under health, we have health reforms, for example, silver economy, basically for the aging population, the blue economy for marine sciences. Then you can have under progressive society for social scientists, financing for business people, public sector efficiency for policy studies, and so on. So plenty, but mention, because when you mention, it will show that you know what's happening. You are someone who is, has done a lot of reading in the subject matter. Next slide, please. Another document, probably something called the New Industrial Master Plan for 2030. And I believe in this document, if you're doing work on health or medical, there is, because this is prepared by MITI, so it's more into industry. Maybe your work will impact on the pharmaceutical, medical industry, so on. You can also refer to Budget 2025, already announced by the Prime Minister in October, and you can refer to health issues highlighted in the document like preventive care, leveraging AI in health research or health services, and also in issues pertaining to infectious diseases and non-communicable diseases. They're not only relevant to health and wellness, but also relevant to social sciences. Next slide, please. And this is the most recent. Ini kayak goreng pisang panas ni kan. Petang-petang ni goreng pisang panas bagus. Dr. Ihsan Because this is the putusan of our yang berhormat Menteri Pendidikan, which he delivered this morning at UTM in Johor Bahru, in Skudai. And if you, I'm sure this copy or this document has been circulated quite widely. Please, you can refer to the document. And next slide, please. I just want to highlight this, that this year there'll be 7 focus areas for 2025. And try mentioning this in your write-up. For example, if you're doing something to improve the, human capital, or whether you are enhancing academic and, campus population, or is it regarding knowledge transfer, or is it related to internationalization, governance, leadership, sustainability, financial sustainability, and also infrastructure and digital health, digital campus. Of course, health campus is very much related with regard to kesejahteraan campus, kan? Well, health and wellness. So, mention some of these focus areas as per indicated by YB Minister of Higher Education. So again, this will show that you are current, you are contemporary, and this will, I think, buy into the heart of our assessors. Next slide, please. Of course, you have to identify these things are quite standard, quite common, or always mentioned here, research priority areas. So identify one, I mentioned earlier, you have to make the right choice, strategize which one you want to choose, plan, discuss with your co-researchers, maybe team members, faculty. So which one your project should fit in, yeah? Next slide, please. You also have to identify clusters. This is quite similar. We are mostly in health. Otherwise, for social scientists, it can be education, can be civil society, social economic well-being, so on. Next slide, please. And this is 10 on 10, which you also have to identify under Academy of Science document. Yeah? So we have along the x-axis is Malaysian socio-economic drivers. There are 10 of them. And on the y-axis are science and technology drivers. So try to map your project into the right grid where it should fall on, which point, the x and y coordinates, which one. So mostly health is there, informatics, neuroinformatics, and so on. You can, mention where your project would fall into. Next slide, please. Also, SDG is still relevant. Again, how your project is going to improve one of the SDGs. Yeah, mostly with regard to health, I think is under 2, yeah? Under 3, yeah? Global health. But you can also relate to other SDGs, one of the 17. Malaysia has one more, miscellaneous, which involves harmonious society and so on, perpaduan and so on. You can also use that as SDG number 18. Next slide, please. So, after having written all this, at the end of your research background, it's always good to put in some preliminary results. And like I said again, best if they are not published or unpublished results, but put them in a very nice format, for example, in infographics, graphs, and so on, and mention that you have started the work, you now need the fund to continue the work. And like I said, with that known, assessors will be more keen to give you the money rather than risk the money to another proposal which has not been started at all. So you put your prelim data, you have a head start ahead of many other proposals. All right. When it comes to next item that we look at after the research background, we look at the objectives. And of course, we use the SMART principle in determining your objectives, whether they are specific, measurable, achievable, realistic, and timely. So we try to assess that whatever objectives you put up, they are achievable. So you should have, if 2-year project, 2 objectives will be sufficient. If it is a 3-year project, then you can have 3 objectives. Again, the objectives must relate to your problem statement and your research question. So how to do it, I think it's best to start, before you start doing your proposal, you sit down and think about what are the problems or what is the problem that you're trying to overcome. Think carefully and think thoroughly. And when you have the problem, then you start thinking about the research question. How do you overcome that problem? And hopefully your research question will start with how or why. So if how does this impact, or how does it happen, or why does it happen? So if you can start research question with how and why, there is a big chance, big possibility that your research question and later your objectives will be fundamental in nature. All right. So again, 2, 3 research questions. If you have 2 research questions, best to have 2 objectives. Each objective. When you have your research question done, easy for you to just reverse or put the research question into statement, they become your objectives. So that's the simple way of doing it. Because for assessor, we have to make sure that you relate your research questions to your objective. So if you have 3 versus 3, if you have 3 versus 4, then it's a bit problematic. Yeah? So make life easy for your assessors. Next slide, please. Then methodology. It's just to say that it cannot be too much and it cannot be too little. Just nice but clear, detailed, so that the reader can understand what you intend to do. If you are doing sampling, introduce your sampling techniques or whatever ways that you're going to do. Make sure they are logical in order to achieve your objectives. Which statistical analysis or package you're going to use, what are your experimental protocol, and so on. So under methodology, as I mentioned earlier, consider your assessors will be someone who is just about 60–70% in line with your areas of your area of expertise. So you have to make him or her understand the way you write. So it cannot be too highly technical, but enough to show that your proposal is, clear, doable, and apt or appropriate for FRGS. And then as much as possible, try to put in a nice flowchart so that it is easy for the assessors to understand. Even the methodology you can have put them into flowchart after you have written so that easy for assessors to go through them. Gantt chart will be automatically generated. Don't forget activities and milestones. They are different activities. They come in plenty. You can have plenty of activities. You can have 8, 9, 10 activities over 3 years, for example. And these activities can be small events that you conduct or you participate in. But milestones are big things. Milestone, normally there are not many. 3, 4 milestones over the 3 years period. Maybe a milestone is when you achieve first objective. That's a milestone. You achieve second objective, another milestone, and achieve third one, then you complete your milestone. Mention that the word to use is completion of objective 1, whatever it is, or achievement of objective 2, settling of 10, meaning that by that time you have accomplished and you have settled doing it. That's a milestone. Eh? So remember, do not have same activities and milestone. Do not just copy activities and paste on the milestone part. This is not right. Yeah. Okay, next slide, please. This is one example I just pick up from a successful proposal. They put up the method in a very with subsection, one by one. They explain how they're going to do it, and with some diagrams that will help the assessors to read and easily understand what they're trying to do. Next slide. So in this proposal, so they put up how they calculated the sample size with this printout from the statistical tool that they have used. And this is convincing, yeah? Make sure that if you do anything involving sample size, make sure your calculation is right and calculation is clear. Next slide, please. Then, for expected assessment criteria on the results that you expect, the new theory, new finding must be highlighted. Always try in your proposal to highlight that or to make assessors aware that what you are going to do is novel, is new, and what you're going to find most likely also will be novel. Mention this is a novel work, this is a new approach that we're using, this is fresh insight into this, mention this word. Again, if you mention several times, not overly mentioning, but several times, then the assessors will have that feeling this is something new that they're looking at, yeah? And then mention about your promise publication. Right now we know it has to be at least one in WS, yeah, 2 papers, 1 in WS. The other one can be in any. But remember to stay away from predatory journals and predatory publishers. There are many of them out there. Watch out, check with your library, check with your RMC. You are not, putting up a journal which is dubious as the potential journal you're going to publish your paper in. This will give a negative, perception to the assessor that you are not aware of now the issue of predatory publishing. IP is very much encouraged now. It can be a copyright, yeah, but it's encouraged. Human capital, as usual, if you do 2 years, it's a master's. PhD, 1 PhD, or if you can push in 2 masters, that's also acceptable. And also you have to indicate the impact on the quintuple helix, like society, like nation, like environment, academia, and so on. So indicate this very clearly. Do not leave any part of the proposal of the form blank. Everything must be filled up. Every section, every subsection must be filled up. Next slide, please. Okay, the track record is important. As I mentioned, make sure profile is updated and show that your team consists of all people who are relevant to conduct the project. Yeah, and they must also update their profiles. You don't need to put your collaborator or partner from the industry as a member of the research team. These are only academics researchers, yeah. And then it's good to have a well-balanced. Normally we put senior, junior, mid-career together as much as we can, yeah. Associate professor or professor would be just nice to become leaders, but senior lecturers who are very strong in that area can also be PI. PI. If you are junior, then include a senior into the team so that they can supervise the postgraduate students. Yeah. Next slide, please. Of course, the quality of the proposal I mentioned, we discussed earlier on comments from the assessors. Sometimes proposals get rejected simply because of the sloppiness of the proposal. It is not meticulous, it's not sharp, it's not proper. Wrong language use, grammar, spelling errors still happening. And also formatting, presentation looks very, again, crowded and so on. Make sure they are nice to look at and easy to read. Yeah, all this will be assessing. Of course, the assessment criteria, I have been informed, will be changed a little bit here and there, but mostly these will be the items that they're going to look at. Next slide, please. And again, if you are writing, make sure you highlight from time to time that your FRGS, either it is novel, it is cutting edge, it will have high impact. Highlight these words, highlight these terms, so that the assessors, again, like I said, they will be made more aware of the importance of the intensity of your projects, which are trying to meet the requirement of FRGS criteria. We have to, if you put up, then we can say that we have seen it and we're going to say, yes, you have it. You know, if you don't mention, then we have to look out for it, and this will, you know, may impact rejection also, may lead to rejection. Yeah? Next slide, please. Okay, again, we look at this before, but as a, you know, kind of summary relook, winnable proposals should have these features. The document or the form, my grants form, should be neat. It should be well organized and easy to read for the assessors. Both assessors internal in your university, in ITM, and also in UiTM, and assessors at KPT. All right. So this need planning, this need a bit of effort, and this also need time to do. If you do last minute, definitely it will be clearly reflected in your proposal. Assessors can easily detect, they can smell a last minute proposal. Believe me, yeah. And also people may ask about resubmitting previously failed proposal. My advice is don't, no point. Think new, think fresh, think 2025, okay? So by doing that, you may be able to come up with a better, a more recent, and hopefully a novel proposal, yeah? And then make sure the proposal, read the garis panduan, read the guidelines. For those who are non-Malaysian, you do not speak Malay, there is an English version, but although it's a bit outdated, but you can refer to the English version plus the changes that have been mentioned earlier, some of the sections that have changed from 2024. RMC or ReNeU can probably help to provide those expatriates to get the English version of the guidelines. But you must read the guidelines so that you don't make mistake that will lead to rejection because you don't guidelines. That is the saddest thing that can happen. And make sure you have something fresh to offer, something new, something novel in trying to overcome or resolve the problem that you have highlighted. Make sure your writing is able to communicate the enthusiasm, the passion, the commitment, the fire in you, and let the assessors know that you are a person who knows the field by providing good CV, updated profile of yourself. Make sure as much as you can, try to provide some preliminary data and make sure that you have done a good, appropriate budget that we are going to go through after this. Next slide, please. All right, a bit on the budget before we close. Again, in the guidelines, they have indicated everything that is required to be done, what can be put into the budget and what not. Before that, just again, summarize the research output or outcomes expected. In regard to publication, two papers, one in WS, the other can be anywhere else. But as much as you can, try and go WS or what we call legit journals, legit journals, not predatory journals. Best to select journals in your area and good to indicate in your proposal the journals that you expect to publish in. Next, for the IP, again, copyright is highly recommended now. Try to come up with something, although we can say fundamental research normally will not lead to IPs, but we try. Commercialization will come later if you have any potential possibility of commercializing your outcome, your product. Next slide, please. Okay, budget for salary and allowances of your GRA. For vote 11,000, just use or just input this GRA salary only, not anything else, not that. So now they have raised the ceiling for salary, PhD at 2,800 and master's 2,300. So easy. If you have a master student that you wish to include in your project, then put in vote 11,000 2,300 times 24. So you get the total. That's the amount you are going to put in your budget. PhD, you put in 2,800 times 36 months. So you get an amount there. For FRGS, you are not allowed to pay for SOCSO or EPF or anything. It's just plain allowance of 2008 or 2003 per month. I suggest do not be, do not be stingy. Just pay that much to our GRAs. Yeah? Do not try to cut corners and pay them 1,008 because they are doing work in, Mocha or somewhere. No, wherever they are, try to pay them full. Ceiling, yeah? Okay, for traveling, vote 21,000. Normally, just as a reminder, for vote 11,000, assessors will not cut your budget because we know you have to have that amount to make sure that the GRA can carry through the project throughout. For vote 21,000 travel, they have made some detail. Please read through two parts. One is a total spend, two types of expenditure, I think here. One is you may want to travel to collect data. For example, you do field studies, you have to do multi-center, you travel multi-places. So you can budget this traveling, how many times, what way, how much per trip. And then for the other one is to travel for conference, attendance at conferences. That is also possible. Total out of the whole sum of the project should not be more than 40% under traveling. Preferably 20% if you're collecting data, 20% if you're going for conferences. Yeah. But if you do not collect data, just put 20% cap for your vote 21,000. And I noticed now you can actually have your GRA to travel overseas. Unlike previously only limited to local travel, now GRA can travel overseas but limited to ASEAN countries. But PI and co-researcher can go out but only once, yeah, international travel. Before traveling, make sure you have already published an article. So I think traveling will only be able to be done in first, second or third year. Yeah? For health sciences, it seems that they still accept if you are presenting poster presentation for clinical and health. But other domain has to be oral presentation. Yeah. For clinical and health, posters are acceptable. But again, before you go, have a paper already published. Sometimes they want you to complete your KPIs first in terms of 2 papers, and then you can travel. So it's safer to do that. Focus on publishing first, then only traveling. Next slide, please. So these are the things that I mentioned. You can travel for colloquiums or seminars and so on. Next slide, please. For rentals, put in a bit if you require use of space. Some universities now they're charging for use of space. Research universities, for example, just put in some budget there because in case like 2,000-3,000 for rental. If your rental, for example, software not here but put under 29,000. Yeah. Vote 27 is for research material. I think many of us would require a lot of money here for lab-based activities. Purchase of kits, purchase of consumables, chemicals, and so on. You can put a lot of money here. Maybe, for example, vote 21,000 for travel. Maybe you can put up to about 15,000. Yeah? For 27,000, you can put up to 120,000, for example, if you can justify. Make sure they're all with quotations. Even though your quotation is outdated, but not too long, somewhere around this time you can get from supplier the quotes, upload the quotes together so that the estimation that you put in seems plausible or seems logical, reasonable. Again, I mentioned if you can justify, normally assessors will not cut anything from here. We know that you have to have those items for you to conduct your research. Under vote 28,000 minor repairs, this is where sometimes, because now ICT in terms of computers, tablets are not supported, although you may, if the work is very much related, you may try to justify and try to request for purchase of computers. but it is quite uncommon for you to be supported. So you can put here some money you need to upgrade your laptop, for example, and maybe you can put up to 5,000, 3 to 5,000 here, and they have to be minor, not any renovation of your lab or anything. It's just small minor repairs and modification in case you have to repair your equipment, change something, battery or something. You can put some money here. Next slide, please. Vote 29,000. This is quite extensive, or you can read through the guidelines again and try to keep to the things mentioned in the guideline. Yeah? Services, for example, hospitality, honorarium to be paid to your enumerators and so on, your subject sample, your subjects for field clinical studies and so on. You can apply, or you can put under here. But you can also send samples for outside assay analysis or for digitizing or something, but should not be more than 5% of the total grant, this amount that you are going to outsource, because they don't want you to be outsourcing almost the whole project. You should be able to do things on your own. You can also apply for attending short term. If you put everything in the budget at the time you're proposing, then when the time comes for you to go, it's easier. There'll be no question asked. But if you do not put, it becomes an afterthought. After you have gotten the grant, then it'd be difficult. Try putting as many possibilities as possible so that when you apply, they know that this has been looked at by the assessors, and the assessors have approved these proposals or these activities. Next slide, please. Again, now you can actually employ an RA as a transit or as a temporary measure for you to wait for a GRA to be elected. I think this is very useful now. I think KPT understands the difficulty of employing a GRA full-time, or sometimes this GRA also prefers to come in first as an RA and to get a feel of the project. And then this is good because you pay RA based on university's rate. The rate is set by RMC. I'm sure RMC has got, maybe it's 1,005 per month or 2,000. Just check with RMC. And this can be up to 3 months and once only. Secondly, you can also budget for publication purposes up to 10,000 only total for the 2 papers. Yeah. And please put this down in your proposal. Next slide, please. All right. Again, read through the guidelines. There are many other items mentioned under Vote 29,000, which I have not gone into, but just please look through. Vote 35,000 equipment accessories, basically one equipment or one item costing more than 3,000 ringgit. Don't put this in vote under Vote 27,000, please. If you're buying, for example, a small, let's say, specialized beaker, for example, costing 3,500 or 4,000, do not put under Vote 27,000. Put it here. Anything more than 3,000, put it here. Except these items, once used, will be totally gone, like columns of HPLCs, for example. Even though costing more than 3,000, you can put under Vote 27,000 because they are hangus, consumed, once used, gone. You cannot keep them. But otherwise, if more than 3,000, they can be kept over a long period as an asset or inventory, put under Vote 35,000. But the total amount, as we know, should not be more than 40,000. If you want to put any item here, you have to justify very in detail why you need to buy the equipment. I have seen we have a pro equipment that costs maybe between 30 to 60,000. That is reasonable, and that item must not be an item which is usually found in labs. Yeah? This is a unique item, should be a unique item that has to be bought just for the purpose of conducting this particular research project that you're proposing. Okay, so we're done with budget, and overall, not more than 250,000. I think normally for social sciences should be about 120,000 to 150,000. For SNT can go up to 150 to 200,000, yeah, or 220,000. All right. Now, before you apply, please subscribe or keep to these ethical principles or ethical practices. First, if you do literature review, make sure you always put up the references, always recognize or always acknowledge your references. You know how to do it, I'm sure. Do not write a long paragraph and then suddenly one reference at the end of it. It normally doesn't sound right. Yeah? So make sure every word that you pick up from another material, another resource, you must acknowledge that, unless this is a sentence that you create yourself. And then do not stretch the truth on your application in order to convince reviewers that your project will make a significant contribution to the field. I guess the reviewers, they are quite okay. They know the subject matter, they know the field, and they will not be, coaxed, or they will not be persuaded to believe some of the stories that you tell them if these are not true. And your curriculum CV, make sure they are just right. Nothing, again, put in which is not related to you, because again, if you're using Google Scholar, please be careful. As you know, do not just write everything or take everything from Google Scholar if you have not filtered it. But again, some of the assessors, they know you, because this is a single blinded assessment. Assessors know the applicant, but applicant does not know the assessor. So single blinded. So assessors sometimes know you personally. Sometimes they know your work professionally. So just state what you have done, exactly that. And that in your team, again, the assessors will know if you're including a researcher or co-researcher who is not really in that area. And without proper roles, you probably are including the co-researcher just as in return for a favor, So try avoid this, because nowadays this thing is not tolerated anymore. Put in a person's name who is able to take over, especially the next leader, appointed leader too, must be the person able to conduct or take over from you. There have been cases whereby even the next appointed, in the end, when the PI has to decline or step down, the next appointed is not able or is not willing to take up. This is wrong, but that's what happened to some projects. This has happened before, and the project would go to waste, public money. So make sure your next in line is very much into the subject matter. If you're doing work on animals, try to reduce or minimize use of animals. Do not waste any animals. Again, your N number calculation must be very much related to your scope of study. Do not be disrespectful of human subject, meaning that you will have a mention that you will get an ethical clearance from the institution in the write-up. And once your proposal is approved, supported, you must obtain that approval within 6 months, meaning the first round of progress report, you must already include the letter of approval from your research ethics committee. Do not plagiarize someone else's idea or proposal, because we can check. First thing that assessors do, they will check for similarity between your proposal and others. We have the system, we have the means to do it. So do not do that. It will reflect very badly on you and also on the institution. And if you are doing research, think about the danger or risk that it will pose onto your students, your staff. Do not do something which you yourself are not willing to do because of the risk. So do not do this type of projects. Avoid these projects. Make sure safety is always at the, at the forefront of your research project. Next slide, please. For reviewers also, we tell them that they also have to behave ethically because they cannot assess proposals coming from their own institution, whether it's current, past, or maybe in the future. And sometimes they are known to be a consultant of that institution, so maybe they have special treatment. They give special treatment to these applications from that university. We try to tell them, avoid, do not accept. If we assign them to do the assessment and they feel that they are not able to avoid bias, then they should decline and send back the proposal for us to give to other assessors. And then sometimes they have to assess proposals coming from their collaborators and colleagues, close colleagues. Are they able to really be neutral and not think about that relationship and just do assessment very strictly on the scientific basis of the proposal? And other relationships with the authors, for example, with the applicants, the assessor may be a family member, personal friends. They can even be your enemy. No, never know. So if you're not able, we tell the assessors, you're not able to assess, please decline. We will provide assessment to other people. Okay, so next slide. So we are coming to the end of the talk. But if you get FRGS, for example, UiTM for 2024, we have quite a number who were successful. I'm happy to say. I know FSK has got 11 successful applications. Pharmacy has got 10, and other faculty also were successful reasonably well 2024. But remember, that's not the end. Yeah, getting the FRGS is only the beginning, because after that there'll be monitoring every 6 months where you have to put in your progress report. It's not difficult, short report to RMC, but do not be lacking on this one. Do not let RMC chase after you, please. They're all busy and you take the responsibility. Remember ethics, when you get the money, try to conduct research in an ethical manner, and that includes submitting your progress report every 6 months to RMC without having to wait for them to call you. All right? I was at RMC, I know the difficulty doing this, very difficult, especially for UiTM when we have hundreds of FRGS proposals at any one time. Next slide, please. So, if you want to prepare a successful, I would say a gorgeous proposal. Sometimes I call it drop dead beautiful proposal. Please look into the guidelines. Follow the guidelines to the letter. Read through. Rajin sikit membaca sepenuhnya guidelines tu daripada muka awal sampai muka ujung. At least on the preparation. Kalau you malas nak tengok penilaian, fine. But at least if you read, then you know how your proposal is going to be assessed, on what basis. So baca, bukannya panjang. And then follow the guidelines. Follow the guidelines as you're writing your proposal. Next slide, please. So, take home message apa dia? What's a drop dead gorgeous FRGS proposal? 3 items or 3 components. 1, it has to be fundamental. Start with how, why your research questions. It has to be novel, show some novelty, some new thing, some fresh insight, and your write-up must be impeccable. No mistake found. But like I said, sorry to say, assessors, they have too many sometimes, like I said, 10. They have to reject 7 or 6. How do they do it? One way is to find fault. If you have faulty in terms of your grammar, your spelling is again not well done, this would be reason for them to reject your proposal, no matter how strong it is in terms of content. So avoid all these mistakes, avoid all these loopholes for them to find reasons to reject your proposal. Give them hard times, prepare the best proposal. And I can tell you, we as assessors sometimes to select between the better and the best ones really take a lot of energy from us. Not easy when proposals are now being written much better. People understand what to put into their proposal. And I mentioned sometimes already, the stakes are getting higher. Bukan stick, the stakes are getting higher. You have to show you are extraordinary for you to be supported. Tak ada ratio, tak ada quota. Doesn't matter how many coming from UiTM that we can support. As long as they are good proposals, the proposal deserves to be supported and recommended. Tak ada issue, tak ada quota, tak ada apa, in terms of money or in terms of institution. The best one will get supported. We want to be always in the highly recommended category. Okay, so with that, I think, thank you very much. Final slide, just to say good luck to you all and all the best. Okay, Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.
Waalaikumsalam warahmatullahi taala wabarakatuh, Dato. Thank you so much, Dato. So many tips yang kita dapat pada petang ini. Amazing tips, Dato. Thank you so much again. Saya pun belajar sangat banyak. Saya learn new words, new things. Everything must be drop dead, ya. Gorgeous, Dato. Okey, Dato. Kita ada beberapa soalan di di YouTube channel. Soalan pertama adalah daripada Raihana Shahir. Soalan begini, Dato. The primary aim of the FRGS is to address or improve issues related to the general population. In my research, I focus on observing recreational athletes as a benchmark with the intent that these can be later adapted and applied to the general populations. While the connection to the general population may not be immediate, the outcome of this study hold potential for broader application in addressing public health challenges. Soalannya, it is okay to have two different populations mentioned in the project? Two different populations in the project, Dato.
I'm trying to understand, but I appreciate your idea. You are doing work on athletes, right? And then trying to relate to the general population. I think it's quite. Your impact too may not be immediate. That's okay.
Dato? Assalamualaikum, Dato. Ira, Dato terputus ya? Sekejap saya masuk.
Okay, terputus tadi agak Sorry. Okay, I have used my phone. Okay, soalan tu I think very good question in the sense that, and very good idea, because trying to look at athletes kan, and then trying to extrapolate to the general population, which is quite relevant to FRGS, because the other things that you expect the impact would be delayed, not immediate, and that's again a feature of FRGS, betul. Tak payah immediate. If you want to do this, I think to make it fundamental, basic, you really have to go deep into the, athletes. Dia punya a bit onto dia punya attitude, dia punya habit, dia punya behavioral basically, behavioral So it involves probably a bit of their punya thinking mind. So kena guna psychology, sport psychology sikit. Then if you understand how they can, how they can put in effort, commitment, hardship, and then you trying to mirror that into the general public. Athletes, of course, I think they have the motivation because they know if they're successful, they get reward. Tapi maybe the same idea should apply to the general public. If you are active, you are sporting, take part in sporting activities, keep yourself, alert, then you gain in the form of better health, better quality of life. And so ada dia punya reward. So try to relate in that manner. The two cohort you're using, two different population is fine. Satu tu on athlete tu, I said go deep into dia punya behavior, their thinking, their style, their attitude. Cerita sikit some psychological theories lah behind this. Okay, good luck to you. Boleh teruskan.
Okay, terima kasih Dato. Another questions from Hassanain Al-Taib. The question is, for travel board, it is included conference fee, travel fees with evidence, or just to estimate the amount of money needed?
I think you can put your fee inside the travel. It's okay. Just put, if the assessor feels should not be there, he or she will transfer to another vote. But this should be the package amount of money that you require to attend the conference. For your travel, it's good to already identify where you wish to travel to. For example, you intend to travel to Bangkok or travel to Dubai. You should have the estimated price for the travel already, and the estimated for your accommodation, also for the fees, and then just embed that into your budget under vote 21,000. Yes.
Okay, another question is from Professor T.S. Dr. Rugaya Haji Hashim Dato. The question is mungkin something to do with the review lah. Sometimes the reviewers comment to revise the proposal were received on the eve of the deadline. Please advise, as this issue has occurred years after years.
Thank you, Professor Dr. Rugaya. Still there and alive and kicking. Good to hear from you. Tapi ini urusan ReNeU and RMC, I guess, untuk proses internal evaluation tu. Jadi please take note of the comment by our esteemed Professor Rugaya.
Sure.
Thank you.
So far tak ada Dato, tak ada lagi question, tapi I have few. The first question is it improve our chances if the members are from interdisciplinary area, national and international, or industry, Dato? Just to show kita punya strength of our team tu.
I think dia yang penting everybody has a role which is relevant to the objective of the project. If they have a role, include them. If they do not, then do not include them. Industry players, we do not expect them to play an active role normally in the research project. So you need not include them. You can include them as your industry partner. International collaboration would help. But again, maybe with proper role that they have to play. But it doesn't actually give much weightage, extra weightage to the team.
Yeah. Because kita kan nak target a lot of PI Dato. I mean, publication mesti ada from industry, daripada international, just to, so this could be an age for the applicants.
Yes, but I think again it's good to have, but it's not really necessary. Like I say, more important is they have the specific role that the reason for inclusion tu ada sebab dia.
Okay, another questions Dato daripada Dr. Abdul Rahman Jaman. Questionnya, how to write a concise yet comprehensive literature review while simultaneously conducting an in-depth analysis of existing research gap? Very technical question.
Yeah, I think literature review, of course, guideline simple is that you look at your title,
Yeah.
and from your title you will draw several keywords, kan? So your literature review can be based on these keywords. Maybe in your title you have 6 keywords, kan? So for every keyword, look for the latest publication articles on these keywords, and then from there it can lead you to a comprehensive. When you look at all the keywords, when you look at the latest on all the keywords, then you probably see the comprehensive nature of the subject matter that you're trying to investigate. And then from there also, I think you're going to begin to see the gaps, where things are missing, where things are already there. So I think my advice is pick up keywords, and from keywords, do Google search and find articles which are related to these keywords, and then put them all together on your the big picture on your piece of paper, and then try to see where the missing links are. That would be your gaps.
Okay, terima kasih Dato. Another questions daripada Dr. Nuraini Muhammad Nordin. Assalamualaikum. Saya ingin bertanya dua soalan. Soalan satu, adakah fee untuk proofreader termasuk dalam fee publication yang maksimum 10,000? Soalan nombor dua, adakah boleh apply untuk Moderator? Jika boleh, bagaimana dengan quotation?
Soalan pertama tu memang 10,000 tu termasuk everything. Kalau baca guidelines memang disebut macam tu. So you can only ask for maximum 10,000 for publication purposes. Yang kedua, enumerators tu biasa ada rate yang ditetapkan di RMC university. So just gunakan kadar itulah untuk buat pengiraan. Yang itu tak ada quotation pun tak apa. Normally we pay, let's say one day we pay 50 ringgit ke or 80 ringgit. So use RMC, I think ada kadar-kadar dia.
Thank you so much, Dato. Thank you very much for the questions. We have another good question from Professor TS Dr. Rugaya Haji Hashim juga sekali lagi, Dato. We use AI and ChatGPT to write our proposal content. The ideas are ours. Will the assessor penalize us?
Thank you, Prof. Rugaya. I don't think so. I mean, these are just tools available. So if you can use them with wisdom, then please go ahead. If the way we read this AI-generated, draft proposal seems logical, makes sense, and substantiated, then it should be okay, because you are the person who's gonna analyze, read through the chat output, and then if you think that output is related, reasonable, reflective of your proposal, then it's okay. We'll read through and we should have the same opinion as you, and then can support, because that's how people are doing work now, being supported or being guided by chat. That is acceptable. But don't put 100% trust on chat now, Rogai, as we know.
Okay, Dato, while waiting for another questions, I have one questions. Saya suka apa yang Dato cakap tadi. One of it is saya panggil lah 2N, 2F. N adalah new ideas dan mesti proposalnya mesti neat. N dan F mestilah fiery, mesti ada show fiery commitment, dan the F adalah fresh start. Thank you very much for teaching that lah. Macam mana kita nak nampakkan kita punya fiery dalam kita punya proposal? tu Dato'. Kita punya macam berkobar-kobar punya keinginan, nafsu nak buat dan percaya
Okay.
dengan projek kita ni.
Okay, maybe different people would have different ideas how to do it. But I would think satu contohnya gunakan show your commitment, your enthusiasm is with regard to the problem statement that you have chosen. Kalau problem statement tu challenging and problem statement tu real and you are able to make the statement stand up clearly, nampak, that is a real problem that we have to face now. Today, even the community and the society in the country, if you can identify that problem, so that problem is well known tapi susah nak selesai kan. But you're willing to go and try put a stake in it or try to put up your head to try solve that problem. That shows that fiery tu. You berani ke depan. Problem yang mungkin sukar. And you have a new fresh idea on how to approach. That's, I think, number one. Number two, you have written something which is flawless. I say, sorry. Proposal flawless. Tak ada mistake yang kita selalu cari, kita ternampak yang kita anggap sebagai silly mistakes. Tak ada. Itu pun menunjukkan you are really someone. And then dalam proposal, you juga akan mention. For example, if this project is not conducted, then we may have to face these consequences, for example. You know, it sounds a bit too pushy, but if you can do it in the right, using the right words, you know, it seems something which is very crucial to be done. The assessors may be but janganlah over promise or janganlah over threatening assessors pula. Tapi dia kena sedap pandai. So I guess those are the things that can make make us feel your proposal memang berapi lah, berapi. Yang patut direspon, diberi respon sepatutnya.
Okay. Ira, ada apa-apa soalan lagi? So far tak ada soalan lagi, Dato'. Kalau begitu kita tutup sesi. Bagaimana, Dato'? Ada pesanan terakhir daripada Dato' kepada semua calon-calon dan penerima?
Nak dengar juga orang Kedah ni ada apa-apa komen from Kedah, how are you doing? Kedah ada special program this morning, I know. Dr. Rizami, anything to add? Dr. Jaya Kumar pada sini.
Assalamualaikum, Dato'.
Salam.
Khabar, Dato'?
So how's your preparation this morning? Kedah, bagus? Sambutan?
Okay. Not so what that we expect, Dato', because this time around many are busy with the classes, assignments, so on and so forth. But we already have two sessions. We have two sessions last 2 months, Dato'. We did earlier the preparation, and this time around we just would like a session to remind the lecturers that they should submit. Actually, today just like I call the reminder to them to submit by next week. But the time is too short, Dato', this time. Too short. 2 weeks given to the lecturers, and again, this is the time also not really suitable this time. But we will try our best, Dato', to submit as many as possible. Yes.
Yeah. Okay, good. Thank you, Dr. Rizami and Kedah, for your effort. And good, you have started. I'm sure that that feeling tu dah ada persediaan tu. Kalau 2 bulan lepas kan kita dah tahu FRGS 2025 is going to be a reality. So now dah sampai masa. Lewat tu I understand mungkin sebab KPT pun ada isu, they announce lewat sikit, so RMC pun kena push. But never mind, still kita cuba sebab every year kita akan ada isu ataupun alasan yang agak sama kan, sibuk dan lecture dan sebagainya. That is perennial, but we know as researchers we always have to be also on our toes. Orang katalah kita mesti sentiasa bersedia. As I mentioned earlier, mungkin this weekend is a working weekend lah. Tak ada masa. Kita
Correct.
Sabtu Ahad lah kita duduk buat kerja. Faham
Yeah.
Kalau di sini
And
kalau
Dato',
kita
Dato' just would like to thank you for accepting our invitation to give a talk this afternoon. Thank you very much, Dato', from Kedah.
you're most welcome, Kedah. Good luck. All the best to you.
Thank
Terima
you,
kasih Dr. Rizami. Dr. Jaya daripada UiTM Kedah. Dan Dr. Syahid ada nak cakap apa ke? Nak tanya apa-apa ke?
So far all clear, Doktor.
Okay. Terima kasih. Okey, sebelum kita tutup, Datuk ada nak sampaikan kata-kata apa tu penutup dan pemangkin semangat, pemberi semangat, penaik semangat kepada bakal-bakal penerima FRGS ini.
Okay lah, saya punya kind of formula lah. Although formula ni mathematically maybe cannot be proven. Okay. Satu, kalau peluang untuk berjaya kalau submit, sebagaimana kita lihat sebelum ini, peratus kejayaan lebih kurang, let's say lah 40%, 35 to 40%. So I say 40%. If you send, you have the possibility of 40% winning. So 40%. Tapi kalau when you submit je, the point when you submit, then you know that you have 50% winning. Sebab you submit kan. 50% memang tak dapat lah. 50% winning. So kalau you kira, sebab kalau you tak submit langsung memang 0% lah kan. Oh, winning 0%. You submit, you have 50% winning. Then we are up there dekat KPT, tambah lagi 40% tadi, kejayaan. So dah jadi berapa dah? 90%. Tapi ini mathematically or statistically dia orang akan argue lah. Tapi I pun tak boleh explain. Tapi I look at that as, you know, motivation untuk submit. Submit and then opportunity ada, kena tempat, kena tajuk, you dapat. That's why I think macam tahun ni pun 2024 UiTM actually ramai dapat kan.
Yeah.
And they all happily doing the project. So please submit. Try level best to do the best proposal. Need any help, we are always here to help you. I'm sure ReNeU, saya pun kalau nak tengokkan proposal saya bantulah sebab setakat mungkin. And then together insyaAllah we can make UiTM this year also as good or if not better than what we achieved last year. So UiTM always target dalam 20 juta tu. InsyaAllah kita boleh dapat 20 juta ringgit grant tu. Thank you. Thank you ReNeU for inviting me and thank you to all for listening. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.
Okey, terima kasih semua dan kita tutup sesi ini dengan bacaan Ummul Kitab Karja dan Al-Asar. Terima kasih semua. Assalamualaikum dan selamat petang.
Terima kasih Dato' dan juga Prof.
Terima kasih, Dato'. Terima kasih PM Doktor.
Terima kasih Dato' and Prof.